There is a yellow that used to mean something. The deep, dusty caterpillar yellow on the hood of an old D9 dozer, parked at the edge of a job site, paint chipped down to bare steel, decals faded by 30 summers of sun. That machine still runs. The man who owns it will tell you it has buried 2 newer machines that were supposed to replace it. And he will tell you, quietly, that the company which built it is not the same company that sells under that name today. This is the story of how Caterpillar became the most trusted name in heavy iron on the planet, and the exact decade it stopped feeling American to the men who run it. It begins in 1925, in the dry farm country of Central California. 2 rival tractor builders had been fighting each other for years. The Holt Manufacturing Company held the famous Caterpillar name and a worldwide reputation built on track-laying crawlers. The CL Best Tractor Company held the domestic market and a sharper, more modern lineup. After the First World War flooded the market with surplus machines, both companies were bleeding. So on April 15th, 1925, they merged into a single firm called the Caterpillar Tractor Company. C.L. Best himself ran the board until his death in 1951. The new company took the best of both, the name, the dealers, the factories, and pointed it all at one idea: build the machine that does not quit. For a long time, that is exactly what they did. Caterpillar crawlers cut roads through mountains and drained swamps and pulled stumps that no horse team could touch. The diesel engine work that came out of Peoria, Illinois, in the 1930s set a standard the whole industry chased, and it moved Caterpillar from gasoline into the heavy diesel power that still defines the brand. By the time the Second World War arrived, Caterpillar was not just a tractor builder, it was a strategic asset. The D7 bulldozer became the machine the United States Army wanted in its hands, the famous yellow swapped for olive drab. Army engineering battalions used Caterpillar crawlers to carve airstrips out of jungle, sometimes under fire. The Navy construction battalions, the Seabees, rode them onto contested Pacific beaches and built runways where there had been nothing but sand. Caterpillar diesel engines, transmissions, final drives, and gun carriages went into the war effort across the board. American boys won ground with Caterpillar steel under them, and they came home and bought that yellow for their own farms and contracting outfits. The trust was earned in mud and remembered for 50 years. If you want to understand how a great American company lost its way, subscribe to Quisoup. If you are watching on your TV, find Quisoup and hit subscribe there. After the war, Caterpillar did something most companies only dream about. It went global without losing its grip. It built plants overseas, opened a dealer network that spanned continents, and turned the cat dealer into the most important man in any contractor's life. You did not just buy a machine. You bought a promise that a part and a mechanic would reach you anywhere on Earth. The dealer would have the part on a truck before sundown, and that single promise was worth more than horsepower. By the 1970s, Caterpillar held something close to a third of the world market in heavy construction equipment. The yellow iron was a symbol of the same thing. The moon landing was. American industry at the absolute top of its game. Peoria was not a sad Rust Belt town then. It was the capital of a world-beating empire, and a young engineer in central Illinois could spend a 40-year career inside one company and retire with a pension that meant something. The machine and the man who built it were both supposed to last. Then came the challenger nobody in Peoria took seriously at first. A Japanese firm called Komatsu set itself a single ruthless goal, written on banners inside its own factories. Marusi, encircle Caterpillar. Komatsu did not attack head-on. It started as a far smaller, lower-quality builder, then improved its iron year after year through a discipline it called Project A and a management style it called Management by Policy. It built plants in other countries and quietly surrounded CAT market by market, and it waited. The opening came in the early 1980s. The United States dollar surged roughly 50% against other currencies, which made every American-built machine brutally expensive abroad, while a Komatsu excavator stayed cheap. A long, draining strike hit Caterpillar in 1982 and 1983, and Komatsu used the gap to undercut CAT on price across the globe. Caterpillar, the untouchable giant, posted staggering losses from 1982 through 1984. For the first time, the men in Peoria felt the floor move under their boots. Caterpillar survived that fight, and to its credit, it fought back hard. It modernized factories, cut costs, and clawed market share back from Komatsu through the late 80s. But something changed inside the company during that scare. And this is where the soul of the story turns. The leadership learned a lesson that would define the next 40 years. The lesson was not build a better machine. The lesson was protect the margin at all costs. From that point on, the people in charge increasingly came from finance, not from the foundry floor. The men who understood spreadsheets started outranking the men who understood steel. You could hear it first in the way the company treated its own workers. In November 1991, Caterpillar refused to match the wage pattern the United Auto Workers, the UAW, had set with John Deere, and instead pushed a tiered pay structure that could cut wages sharply for new hires. When the union struck, Caterpillar threatened to hire permanent replacement workers, and after roughly 5.5 months on the picket line, in April 1992, the UAW sent its people back on the company's terms. The bitterness did not fade. In June 1994, more than 13,000 workers walked out again across 8 plants in Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Colorado. That strike dragged on for 17 months, into December 1995, with picket line fights, security guards squaring off against strikers, and broken trust on both sides. The company won. But it won by treating the people who built the machines as a cost to be beaten down, and the men on the floor never forgot which side management had chosen. The same logic that had once meant build it stronger now meant grind it cheaper. Then came the part that finance people loved and machinists dreaded. Around 2001, under Chief Executive Glenn Barton, Caterpillar adopted Six Sigma, the data-driven cost program that was sweeping corporate America. Barton challenged every officer to commit to it personally and tied it directly to a revenue target of $30 billion. His successor, Jim Owens, pushed it deeper, eventually pulling hundreds of suppliers worldwide into the system and minting more than 1,000 supplier black belts to enforce it. On paper, it was a triumph. Caterpillar hit that $30 billion mark in 2004, 2 years early, and rolled on to more than $40 billion in revenue by 2006. But Six Sigma is a machine for finding cost. And once you teach an entire company to hunt cost above all else, it starts hunting the things customers cannot see on the showroom floor: the grade of steel in a bracket, the thickness of a casting, the supplier who charged a little more because his parts lasted twice as long. The program counted everything that fit in a spreadsheet and quietly discounted the one thing that did not: the feeling an operator gets when a machine simply refuses to break. Quick break before we get into what happened next. If you have been on this channel for a while, watching the slow decline of Caterpillar, there is a way to make sure you do not miss what is coming. Join the operator tier for $4.99 a month. You get badges that mark you as a working professional in the comment section, custom emoji to call out the corporate decisions that killed Cat, and you get every video 24 hours before the rest of the internet. To join, open your phone and search Quisoup membership, or go to the channel page and tap join. Join the operators and engineers who are paying attention. Now back to it. The clearest, most dated proof that the soul had changed came in 2012. The year before, Caterpillar had posted a record profit, roughly $4.9 billion. The company was making more money than at any point in its history, and in that same stretch, at its plant in Joliet, Illinois, management demanded a 6-year wage freeze and a pension freeze from its production workers while raising their health costs. The workers struck for about 3 months and lost. Meanwhile, the chief executive, Doug Oberhelman, took home compensation that climbed into the tens of millions, a raise of around 60%. Read that again slowly. Record profits flowing up to the top, frozen wages forced on the people swinging the wrenches. That was the moment a lot of old cat hands say the company stopped being a builder of machines and became a machine for moving money to shareholders. That is the day, more than any factory closing, that it stopped being American in the way they meant it. Compare it to Liebherr, the family-owned outfit out of Europe that still answers to a family and not to a quarterly earnings call, and that can afford to think in decades because no activist investor is breathing down its neck. Or Komatsu, the old enemy, which simply kept building practical, reliable iron without theater and quietly closed the gap on Cat in market after market. Or Volvo, which decided cab comfort actually mattered to the man sitting in that seat 12 hours a day and engineered the operators back into the spreadsheet instead of out of it. Those 3 companies kept a center of gravity that Caterpillar traded away for a better stock chart. And if any of this sounds familiar, it should. The same disease hollowed out Boeing, another great American name where the accountants beat the engineers and the product paid the price in the field. Nobody had to tell the men in the shop to draw that comparison. They made it themselves, leaning on a fender at lunch. The physical symbol arrived in 2017. On January 31st that year, Caterpillar announced it was pulling its global headquarters out of Peoria, the city that had been its heart for nearly a century. The company had once planned to build a gleaming new headquarters tower in downtown Peoria, and it scrapped that plan and pointed the executives at Deerfield in the Chicago suburbs instead. The factories and most of the workers stayed near Peoria, more than 17,000 of them across Illinois. But the brain of the company left town. Then, in June of 2022, Caterpillar announced it would move that headquarters again, this time all the way to Irving, Texas, in the Dallas area. The leadership had drifted, step by step, away from the foundry, away from the union halls, away from the river town where C.L. Best's promise had been kept for generations. The yellow paint stayed the same. Everything behind it had moved. So here is what I want you to weigh. Was the Caterpillar that left Peoria a smarter, leaner, more profitable company that simply outgrew its hometown? Or did it win the spreadsheet and lose the thing that made it worth trusting in the first place? Tell me in the comments, because the machines tell their own story. The old D9 in golden light still runs, and the new one sits with a fault code and a dealer who wants a fortune to clear it. That gap is not nostalgia. It is a decision, made in a boardroom, dated and documented, to value the margin over the iron. One more thing before you go. If you really want to be part of the inner circle on this channel, join the site Foreman for $9.99 a month. You get a public shout-out in upcoming videos. Your name, your operation, your story, validated in front of the entire Quisoup audience. Plus everything from the operator tier. To join, open your phone and search Quisoup membership, or go to the channel page and tap join. And remember, a company can keep its color and its logo, and still throw away the only thing that ever made it great: the trust of the people who ran its machines. See you in the next one.